After 9 years together, my partner cheated, now they want an open relationship. I don't know what to do? Hey Reddit. After 9 years together, I thought my relationship was solid. We had built a life, shared countless memories, and always talked about our future. I never imagined that one day, everything would come crashing down because of betrayal. But here I am, sitting in the ruins of what I thought was an unshakable bond, wondering if I'm the fool for even considering the possibility of fixing things. It all started a few weeks ago when I noticed a shift in my partner's behavior. They became distant, their phone was always glued to their hand, and they seemed less interested in our usual routines. At first, I chalked it up to stress from work or just one of those phases people go through in long-term relationships. But then came the late nights, the vague explanations, and the sudden interest in dressing up more than usual. My gut told me something was wrong, but I pushed those thoughts away because I trusted them. I told myself I was just being paranoid. Then, everything unraveled in the worst way possible. I found out about the cheating not through a confession or an accidental slip-up, but because they got careless. One night, they fell asleep with their phone unlocked, and a message popped up that made my heart drop. It was explicit, intimate, and worst of all, it was clear that this wasn't some one-time mistake. This was ongoing. My hands shook as I scrolled through their messages, seeing months of conversations that made my stomach turn. I saw them planning nights together, sharing inside jokes, and even talking about me as if I were just an obstacle in their way. I didn't wake them up immediately. I just sat there in silence, staring at the person I thought I knew. My mind raced with questions. Why? When did this start? Was I really that blind? I wanted to scream, to shake them awake and demand answers, but I didn't. Instead, I put the phone down, went to the other room, and sat in the dark until morning. When they finally woke up, I confronted them. At first, they tried to deny it, but when I told them I had seen the messages, their face changed. There was no real remorse, no panic, just a sigh, like they had been waiting for this moment. And then, they hit me with something I never expected. Instead of begging for forgiveness or even trying to justify their actions, they told me they had been thinking a lot about our relationship and that maybe we should try an open relationship. As if that would fix things. As if that was some kind of compromise. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They cheated on me and now wanted permission to continue? They said monogamy felt restrictive and that after almost a decade together, it was natural to explore other connections. They even had the audacity to say they still loved me and didn't want to lose what we had, but they also didn't want to deny themselves new experiences. I felt like I was in some kind of twisted nightmare. I asked them point blank if they ever intended to tell me about the cheating if I hadn't found out. Their response? They weren't sure. They claimed they didn't want to hurt me, which was ironic considering the pain I was feeling in that moment. They said they were scared of how I'd react, and that's why they never brought up the idea of an open relationship before. But now that everything was out in the open, maybe this was an opportunity to redefine our relationship. I just stared at them, unable to process the sheer selfishness of it all. They had already made the decision to cheat, and now they wanted to act like they were doing me a favor by offering this alternative. I told them I needed time to think, but honestly, I don't know what there is to think about. The betrayal is one thing, but the lack of real remorse and the way they're trying to twist this into something that benefits them is making my head spin. I always thought that if my partner ever cheated, I would walk away without hesitation. But now that it's happening, it's not so simple. We have 9 years together. We've built a life, shared friends, made plans for the future. Part of me wonders if I'm overreacting, if maybe an open relationship could work. But then I remember that I wasn't given a choice in this. They didn't come to me beforehand and say they were feeling unfulfilled or curious about exploring other connections. They went behind my back, lied, and only brought this up when they got caught. I keep replaying our conversation in my head. The way they spoke so casually about changing the entire dynamic of our relationship like it was just another phase. The way they acted like I should be grateful they were even giving me an option instead of just leaving outright. And the worst part? I can't tell if they actually regret what they did or if they're just upset that they got caught. I haven't told anyone yet. I don't know how to even begin explaining this to friends or family without feeling embarrassed. I don't want to hear the "I told you so's" or the judgment. I don't want to be the person who stayed in a relationship where I was clearly disrespected. But I also don't know if I'm ready to walk away from everything we built. Every part of me knows that I deserve better. That I deserve someone who respects and values me enough to be honest. But at the same time, I keep wondering if I should at least hear them out. Is there any world where an open relationship could work after something like this? Or am I just clinging to a sinking ship because I'm scared of what comes next? I know I need to make a decision soon. I can't live in this limbo forever. I just wish I had a clear answer, a sign telling me what to do. Right now, all I have is this overwhelming feeling that no matter which path I choose, nothing will ever be the same again. And that terrifies me. Update. I took some time to sit with my emotions before making any decisions. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I couldn't just brush this under the rug. The betrayal itself was painful enough, but what really got to me was the way my partner presented the open relationship as some kind of solution rather than an admission of guilt. They acted like this was just a logical next step, completely ignoring the fact that they had already broken my trust in the worst way possible. I finally opened up to a close friend about what had happened. Their reaction was immediate and clear: walk away. They couldn't believe I was even considering staying after what my partner had done. But it's never that simple, is it? When you've built a life with someone, when you've spent nearly a decade together, leaving feels like cutting off a part of yourself. There's this irrational part of me that still wants to believe there's a way to fix things, even when all the evidence says otherwise. After days of avoiding any real conversation, I finally sat down with my partner to talk. I asked them point blank why they thought an open relationship was the answer. Their response made my stomach turn. They said they had felt restricted for a long time but didn't know how to bring it up without risking what we had. They claimed that their cheating wasn't about me, that it was about them needing to explore and grow. And that's when it hit me: this wasn't about love, respect, or even an honest mistake. This was about them wanting to have their cake and eat it too. I told them that if they had come to me before cheating, if they had been honest about their feelings, maybe we could have had a real conversation about it. But now, all I could see was someone who had already made their choice and was just trying to soften the blow. They weren't sorry about what they did. They were just sorry they got caught. I told them I needed space and that I wasn't sure if I could ever trust them again. They didn't fight me on it. They just nodded, as if they had already accepted that this might be the outcome. That hurt more than anything: how easy it seemed for them to let go of what we had. Right now, I'm staying at a friend's place, trying to clear my head. My partner has been texting me, saying they still love me and want to work through this. But how do you work through something when the other person doesn't even seem to grasp the depth of what they've done? I don't know what my next move is, but I do know one thing: this isn't something I can just forgive and forget. Another update. It's been a couple of weeks now, and things have only gotten clearer. I gave myself the space I needed, and with every passing day, I realized just how much I had been holding on to something that was already broken. My partner kept reaching out, sending messages that ranged from apologetic to defensive. One day, they'd be saying they missed me, that they regretted how things played out. The next, they'd be saying I was overreacting and that plenty of couples make open relationships work. It became obvious that they weren't actually sorry, they just didn't like the consequences of their actions. I started thinking back to our relationship, and the more I reflected, the more I saw the cracks that had always been there. There were moments, even years ago, where they had dismissed my feelings, made selfish choices, or acted like their needs mattered more than mine. I had overlooked so much because I believed in us. But now, standing on the outside, I saw it all for what it really was. One night, I finally agreed to meet up with them. I needed closure. I needed to hear what they had to say one last time. When I walked into the cafe, they looked fine. Not devastated, not heartbroken, just fine. That told me everything I needed to know. We talked for a while, but nothing they said changed anything. They kept trying to spin the situation as if this was just a natural shift in our relationship, something that could be navigated if we were both open-minded. I realized then that they weren't fighting for me. They were fighting for their own convenience. That's when I told them it was over. I said that I deserved more than someone who saw me as an option rather than a priority. Their face barely changed. It was like they had already moved on in their head long before I even confronted them. That hurt, but it also made my decision easier. I walked away that night knowing I'd done the right thing. The weight I had been carrying for weeks, months even, finally started to lift. It was painful, of course, but it was also freeing. Final update. It's been a little while now, and I can finally say that I'm at peace with my decision. Breaking up after 9 years is like tearing a piece of your own identity away, but I know now that I was holding on to something that wasn't real anymore. Maybe it never was. My ex has stopped reaching out, and honestly, that just confirms what I suspected all along. They never truly loved me in the way I deserve to be loved. They loved the idea of me, the stability I provided, the convenience of a long-term partner who would always be there. But when it came down to it, they were willing to throw it all away for the sake of their own desires. The hardest part has been rebuilding my life outside of this relationship. Almost a decade with someone means that so much of your life is intertwined with theirs. Mutual friends, routines, even the way you think about the future, it all has to be rewritten. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm in control of my own happiness again. Looking back, I see now that the biggest betrayal wasn't just the cheating. It was the way they tried to manipulate the situation, to gaslight me into believing that an open relationship was the solution when, in reality, they had already emotionally checked out. They had been planning their escape while I was still holding on to the dream of forever. I'm not bitter. If anything, I'm grateful. Grateful that I found out now rather than wasting more years with someone who didn't truly value me. Grateful that I had the strength to walk away instead of settling for less than I deserved. To anyone reading this who might be in a similar situation, trust your gut. Don't let someone convince you that their betrayal is your problem to fix. Love should never come at the cost of your self-respect. I don't know what the future holds for me, but I do know one thing: I'm finally free. And that's worth everything.